Mountain people don't have time for dreaming, picnic. Go fetch the water. Her voice was creaky from the cold morning air or perhaps from lack of use. Prudence glumly took the leather bucket and stepped past her foster mother. How do they do it? She marveled, not for the first time. They crept upon her constantly with their noiseless, gliding gait.
Greetings, Apreneurs. Welcome to the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast, the show that uncovers the secrets to win with books beyond book sales and dominate authorpreneurship. Through exclusive author interviews, stories, and must-have resources, you will discover some of the secrets and strategies to thrive with books and generate lasting income. I invite you to become an Authorpreneur Ambassador and join me in my mission to raise up 10,000 Caribbean authorpreneurs by 2030. Spread the word about the podcast and encourage more people to increase their impact and income with books beyond book sales. To get started, visit authorpreneursecrets.com/resources and download all the resources that you need to become a winning authorpreneur. Without further ado, let's get into the show. It's episode 123 of the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast, and I'm your host, C. Ruth Taylor. Today we have an exciting interview for you with author of the Run to Freedom series, Dawn Forrester Price. It is a historical novel highlighting the resilience and struggles of an enslaved family on a Jamaican plantation as they plot and plan their escape. And it's a 3-part series, and you don't want to miss that, because what I found interesting about this interview is something that we often miss when we focus on book sales only, is how a book can create those connections. And even in the diaspora, as we tell our stories, our books help us to preserve our Caribbean connections and to form new connections. And so I don't want you to miss that interview. Also, I'm going to give you a brief update on the rocket writing challenge that's going on right now. When this episode is aired, we would be day 6 in that challenge. And I am far advanced in the version of this book, Authorpreneur Secrets. So it's going to be updated and expanded. And I'm really looking forward to it, because it's going to be relaunched at the Caribbean Authorpreneur Summit in January 2024. And we're going to be officially launching our Vision 2030 Authorpreneur campaign to raise up 10,000 Caribbean authors by 2030. I know you've been hearing me talk about it, but we're going to focus a lot on that in the Caribbean Authorpreneur Summit, January 19 to 20 in 2024. So stay tuned.
Throughout our lives, we encounter adventures and memorable events. Making the most of these events is key, because these adventures create milestones in our lives, and what better way to document these milestones than through books? Milestones, big or small, but they all hold a special place in our hearts. The accomplishments may be personal, such as graduating from school or getting a promotion at work, or they may be shared with others, such as getting married or even having a child. These books can serve as a reminder of the hard work and dedication that went into reaching that goal. They can capture the memories and emotions associated with it, and they can be cherished for years to come. No matter what the milestone is, capture it in a book.
All right. So my latest entrepreneurship venture is our rocket writing competition, which is taking place in the Indie Authorpreneurs Facebook group. It is not too late to join, right? Because some persons don't need the entire 30 days to write a manuscript of 10,000 to 30,000 words. And that's either your memoir or any type of nonfiction. And of course, the winner will get a structured edit from me, as well as a consultation session for me to help you to plan the publication, and discuss how you're going to utilize that book for greater impact and increased income. And so one of the things we're doing on the challenge that I'm doing to encourage you, I've set up a virtual rocket writing studio, and every Thursday at noon Central, that's going to be around 11 or 1 p.m. Eastern, I am going to be doing a writing sprint for 30 minutes to just boost you and help you. I did that on the 2nd of November, and I got almost 2,000 words in. And so it's worthwhile, and I want to encourage you to do that. Of course, when the challenge is over, if you want me to do a rocket writing boot camp with you to get your book done in 24 hours, I'm available for that, of course, at a cost. And you will hear more about that in the days and months to come. All right, so that's the latest in terms of my entrepreneurship venture. This is an entrepreneur initiative because it's a book-based initiative around the book, The Rocket Writer, which is free wherever books are sold online. It was published through Drafted Digital, so all their aggregate, it's an aggregate distributor, so all their partners would have it. It's also on Kindle for free, and over 300 persons have downloaded it. So yeah, you can get it. It's also in audiobook format, and I have the audio available on YouTube, and the link to that is in the show notes. So without further ado, let's get into the interview with Dawn Forrester Price, and she's also going to be doing a book reading for us. Today I have with me Dawn Forrester Price. She's an experienced educator with undergraduate and graduate degrees in English and education from the University of the West Indies and a master's degree in teaching MAT from Core College, Cedar Rapids. Dawn taught English literature in Kingston and excelled in Jamaican theater and music as a singer, lyricist, and award-winning actor. Having emigrated to the US, she taught college-level English and ESL, focusing on drama as a route to communication skills. She wrote and directed and performed educational and religious theater and video productions, including Jamaica Woman. And she's here to tell us all about this journey of preserving Caribbean heritage through literature. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, it is so good. Now, you haven't been living in Jamaica for more than 2 decades. So talk to us. What is it that you miss about Jamaica?
The first thing that comes to mind is just what it looks like. I mean, it is spectacularly beautiful. And just the trees and the plants, everything from a little tiny shame old lady plant to a big cotton tree, and all the flora in between, listening to the sounds of the birds, the color of the dirt and the different types of earth. I miss the sound of the people. I love to hear Jamaicans speak. When I hear a Jamaican speak, it moves something inside me. You connect with it. You don't realize it so much. Like when I'm here and I have mostly Americans around me, I don't remember how much it means to me to hear a Jamaican voice. And so I guess basically I miss everything about home. And I've been here since 1986. So it's a long time.
Indeed, that's a very long time. And I suppose that has played a part in the writing of the series Run to Freedom. Our first national hero, Marcus Garvey, said that people without knowledge of their past, history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So talk to us. What prompted you to write this series, Run to Freedom, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I wrote the first book when my 2 children were young, sort of upper elementary, middle school. They did not grow up they grew up in the Midwest and in a city in which there were very few Black people. In fact, and there were no Caribbean people that I knew except this one gentleman from Jamaica. And so this is it. And because we didn't do, we went to Jamaica when we could afford it, but it wasn't anywhere near as often. And then, my kids were stereotyped. They were not Black enough for the Black kids. They were not white enough for the white kids. They felt that they needed to, be fitting into one box or the other. And I would say to them when they ask this very rude question, what are you? I would just say, tell them human. They really were very uncomfortable in many instances because of that, and because people expected one thing from them and got something else from them. There was a social discomfort, and I wanted to give them lessons about Jamaica, but they were kids. I mean, and it wouldn't help them. I couldn't replace my bringing, and so I decided that I would write the story of why I felt so proud of my people. And I chose to write it with the protagonists in their age group so that they could have a vision of what life for them would have been like had they been born a few hundred years ago on a plantation in Jamaica, or had been brought over from Africa, so that they could see there were some serious things that kids their age were facing. And if these kids could focus on trying to live within the system or trying to escape from the system of violence that was visited on families through slavery, then they could do it within their context. And really what it needed was similar types of courage and resiliency and the strength of the family behind you. And that is why I formulated this book as it was. I wanted it to be a connection for them, and I wanted to share it with their friends, which I got a chance to do because I was invited to read the book at the schools where they went. Having written that, I found that it was an attractive piece for older. The parents were even more excited. And it was not limited to West Indians that I shared it with, but all my neighbors and all the people at my church and the people at my school. And it was like, oh, Dawn, I had no idea things were like that. And so the object of education that I had started off for my own kids, I was able to expand to other people's kids and other grown-ups as well. And people kept asking me about, well, when are we going to have the sequel? When are you going to do that? And I really hadn't initially planned to do two of them. And so I got to thinking about it, and I realized that there was a lot more story to tell. And so from that beginning, I am now working on the third book in this Run to Freedom series, which focuses on the young Kofi and his sister Prudence, who go through life on the plantation and somehow manage to escape into the hinterland to work with the Maroons. But at the end of their story would be at the end of the Second Maroon War. Then I have the story of their mother, who was born on a ship coming over from Africa. So she's a Creole. So her story, and her husband who came over as an adult. And so I'm having a great time just looking at the different experiences of different people coming from a variety of backgrounds, all coming together to form families. So because I am very family oriented, as the majority of Jamaicans are sort of so set in their families, at least that is my experience. all the processes that families have to go through in order to be successful and to support each other. And sometimes the families don't function like they should. So family life is a big thing, and personal courage is a big thing. And being able to flex as life changes, it offers different opportunities from what you expected. And so, for instance, Prudence was really interested in education, but kind of education she wanted to get, she couldn't get. So is she going to be able to now accept what is available to her and use that to her advantage and towards helping the community that she finds herself in? So that's basically it's burgeoning. I thought that it was going to close down at the end of the three books, but it's opening up a lot more just in terms of this particular set of books and this particular family. There's a lot more to explore. This is not to say I don't have other, books that I have
Yes.
planned to write.
I find it totally fascinating as I'm listening to you. This really is a historical novel because we are learning about the Jamaican culture. We are learning about our history and development as a people. And we're learning about family and so many lessons there to learn, resilience and all the things, courage, the things that you spoke about. And I love it. I admire the creativity in just bringing this world together and doing it so well. The reviews that have come are very positive, and I'm just going to show for those who are watching on screen and those who are listening to the podcast, you can go to forresterprice.com. That is Dawn Forrester's website, where you can also get a free chapter of the book. And we're looking at Hinterland there, and download the free chapter. Run to Freedom Book 1 is there, and you see Run to Freedom 2 is available in audio. And it's the first book is available in audio, it's available in paperback, it's available in hardcover and ebook. So all the versions, and you can buy directly from the author. Of course, when you buy direct, the author gets a higher royalty. It's also on Amazon, and the audiobook is on about 42 different platforms. So I just find it fascinating, and I want to encourage you to get the book. And I want to put a plug in here for Dawn, in the sense that every year we celebrate independence, we celebrate emancipation. It's now November, and in October we celebrate our Heroes and Heritage Month. This is a good book to, if you're in school on Jamaica Day, to get it. In the diaspora, when you're having your activities, this is a good book. And you can invite Dawn to come and do a reading. And let's just talk about our history and our achievements as an extraordinary people, not just Jamaicans, but Caribbean people, because this is a Caribbean show. And so congratulations. Can you distinguish between the two books? What's the main feature of Run to Freedom 1 and book 2? Because you talk about book 3 coming up and the features of that. But tell us a little bit about book 1 and 2. What are the storylines, the main storylines, without giving away too much?
Okay. Well, Run to Freedom, the protagonist in Run to Freedom is Kofi, who is the youngest child of the family, but of course there are only two kids, and he is the son of Kwame and Dorcas. And he, in this book, is faced with the loss of his dad.
Mm.
His father is interested in finding a way to get his family out of the clutches of the planters. And he manages to make a connection to the Maroons, and he tries to escape, but he is killed.
Mm.
This story focuses on how Kofi, as the young man, feels, well, of course, it's now my responsibility to be the man of the house, to take care of my mother and my sister, and to fulfill my father's dreams. Well,
Yes.
of course, that's easier said than done. And so he Run to Freedom follows his attempts to escape and his fear, but his courage and how life gives him opportunities to serve not just his family, not just the plantation, but the people in general, the Africans around in various parts of the country or the countryside, in the mountains as well as on the plantations. So that's book number one is Kofi's, he is out there living his best life. But
Yes.
what I like about Kofi is that, often we will think that people who are courageous are just brave. But I think courage really is courage only because we're terrified. If we are just going to be, oh, this is great, I can do that. If we can do that, then it's not really courage. So we have to see the courage that he shows and the love that he has for his mother, his sister, and of course, the people in general. Well, then the second book, the protagonist is his sister Prudence. And now this is her journey towards freedom and how she is rescued and joins the same group of Maroons as her brother. And the evolution of her self-discovery as she finds herself away from her mother, to whom she was so close, and having to adjust to this new community and not being so sure that this is really such a great idea. But then, the ups and the downs that you go through when you're far away from home and all of that. It's not that she is perfect. She misses her mom, and then sometimes she's having a fabulous time. And so I think having us understand that the people in the past are really us, and we are the people in the past. And all the same elements of courage and fear, conquering trials, all of those that those people needed to have in their untenable situation. We have similar situations in our lives in which we have to draw on those same strengths, and we have inherited them from our forebears. And so we're fine. We just need to believe and be faithful and keep pressing forward. And so that's really the two books in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I love it. There's a lot to learn there. So books open doors. That's one of my favorite things to say. And it's a platform for transformation. Even if you don't sell 1 million copies, the fact that you're an author is often a launching pad for so many different things. So how has becoming an author opened doors for you? And can you tell us a little bit about what has happened since becoming an author?
Becoming an author of novels it's different from what the writing that I did before, as in writing plays and, writing lyrics for music and so on. But everything that I have written before has been sort of enfolded in my artistic and religious endeavors. So with the chance of drama, it was part of my service and ministry in my church. So I didn't really think about it as being a writer, but it was part of the ministry. And the same thing with the educational programs that I developed and implemented. But now that I have a larger audience, I think that's what it is, because the theater in the schools was for the school population and the community around, and the same thing with the church population, congregation, and the community around. But I find, having written these two novels, my audience has expanded, and considering how much Zoom and other platforms like this have opened the doors to communicating on a broader basis than before. That has been awesome. Also, I find that I have been very fortunate to connect with a group of other Jamaican writers with whom I just finished doing a book tour, and I was in the position to invite two authors having written their first books to come on the tour with us. So not only am I connecting with my audience, but I'm connecting with more authors. And we're finding that when we make presentations, when I get a chance to read in person or on one of these platforms, something about my voice being able to carry the message is absolutely riveting for some people, and it is a great blessing to me to be able to bring the story, because quite frequently we won't listen to a lecture, but we will certainly listen to a story. We are a storytelling community. The Caribbean is full of people who came from Africa and other places where storytelling was the way that you learned. And so I'm able to do that. That has been, I think, the biggest changes. I feel like very personal connection, but with a wider audience and a sense of camaraderie and common purpose with the other authors, who I found quite a few of them writing historical, but maybe not as far back as mine, but in the 60s and in the 50s and so on, and exploring our message to our communities. And especially most of them are part of the diaspora like I am. And so often you feel so dissociated from the people at home, because you can really only get back to your auntie. Hello, auntie, it's me. How you doing, darling? But, now I feel like I have a better opportunity to reach a broader audience there. So I think that that's basically, I'm inspired to do more outreach and, to do like the school tours and so on, because there's a new generation of kids, and their teachers and their parents. So there's always room to share tales and share stories and establish common ground, which in today's world is even more imperative that we, I mean, when I moved to America, people would ask me things like, well, what's it like to be a Jamaican? And they always were focusing on the differences. And I would never start at the differences. I would always start at the common ground, because I don't want to be othered and I don't want to other them. I want us to establish common ground, and then you can get to and guess what we do that you guys don't do, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting rather than, boy, are you weird, So I think establishing common ground is the best place to start.
We go back to what you said at the beginning about when you're in the US, that you miss what you miss about Jamaica is it may not have been intentional, but what has happened is that this book is helping you to build the community and the connections.
Yes, definitely.
You missed back home, establishing common ground. I love it. I love it. And so we want to leave this program knowing that your book can help you to build a community. It's not just about sales. It can help you to build a community, establish common ground, build camaraderie. And I am just excited about that insight coming out of this interview. And I'm going to ask you to do something that is unprecedented on this podcast, because you mentioned it and I was thinking about it. Would you mind reading a little from your book? Pick any one of them, Hinterland or Run to Freedom, and just read a portion for us.
This is from Hinterland. Prudence is on the mountain with a family that she's staying with. And the lady, her name is Miss Mattie, stared at her expressionlessly. Mountain people don't have time for dreaming, picnic. Go fetch the water. Her voice was creaky from the cold morning air or perhaps from lack of use. Prudence glumly took the leather bucket and stepped past her foster mother. How do they do it? She marveled, not for the first time. They crept upon her constantly with their noiseless, gliding gait. And while she seemed to make enough noise for a whole platoon of redcoats just walking in her bare feet. I must learn how to do that walk. As for speaking, Prudence was bewildered by the different languages she heard when people did speak. Kaino, Miskito, Hausa, Igbo, Fulani, Yoruba, Twi, and Spanish. She was itching to learn, but was sure no one would take the time to teach her. She would have to keep her ears big to pick up the meaning of the other speech. In the meantime, she could practice her walking. Prudence arrived at the stream in the cockpit bottom where the maroons drew their water every day. She splashed along in the stream bed to the spot where the spring rushed over a pile of rocks and pooled at the bottom of the small cataract. Standing in the middle of the little pool, she enjoyed the feel of the sand shifting between her toes. The bucket filled up from the natural spout. Prudence turned toward the bank, hefting the brimming vessel. Lounging on the bank, looking as though he'd lain there for days, was her brother, dark eyes twinkling. His smooth chocolate-colored face was framed by short, spiky curls. Kofi, it's when you get here. Been watching you the whole time. He grinned and flipped over onto his belly, patting the earth beside him in an invitation for her to sit. How you do it? I've been practicing, but I just can't move as quietly as these people. You can do it. What do you think Papa was teaching me all those Sunday morning when we used to wake up before day and cross the river to hunt the birds? Oh, you think we escape from the watchers and come back? At least you fit in with these mountain people better than me. They just don't seem to ever make any noise. Remember how we used to play ring games? You and Morgan used to spin your gig and steal away to the blue hole for a swim. We had to keep quiet except in the great house. Remember the day when we first come to this maroon town? Just thinking about it make me here stand on end. Fool, picnic, you're here always standing on end. But Kofi, it was so strange. You are brave and strong, Prudence. I'm proud of you. But now that I have to dig in the fields and do all the battle drills and all the cooking and the cleaning, men do anyway. I was made to be a hunter, sis. Hunt and fight. That's what we do. Prudence poked him in the side and he stifled a laugh. He had always been ticklish. Serious, man. I don't think I'm going to get on here, Kofi. They want me to learn how to shoot and fight with cutlass. What about bow and arrow and lance? Them too. But all I ever wanted to do was read books and get learning. Not what the mountain people call learning, Kofi. Yes, I know that they give the learning every day, but I haven't seen one single book since I've been here. Kofi's smile faded. I know it's hard, Prue, but Papa gave his life trying to reach these people, and I follow his dream to bring us here. I know how you miss Mama, but she wanted us to get away from the plantation too. Don't worry. I will go back and get her. We're going to be a family again.
I love it. That was riveting. Thank you so much. So, any final words for our aspiring authors who perhaps are thinking of writing historical novels, or Caribbean people in the diaspora who are nostalgic? What would you advise them?
Well, I think once you can be clear about your area of interest, It might be something that you don't have to research. It might be a memoir. It might be a part of your own life. Um, I am very much into verisimilitude. If I'm going to write something, it must be true, whether it's fiction or not. The truth must be there. I don't, in order to have a successful book, your characters must live in a world that makes sense to them. And so when you are bringing your readers in, establish the world. Now, because I have been writing historical fiction, I have to do research to make sure that I have the right time and what were they doing exactly on this date and so on and so forth. But you don't have to do that. As a writer, I have found that reading, exposing myself to, especially when I have a focus, exposing myself to whatever I can get before I decide on the parameters of the story. And then, having decided on the parameters of the story, you may have to stop in the middle of your plotting to do some research too. So observe, learn, and most of all, listen. I think we need to listen outside as well as inside. I have to listen to that still small voice. I have to listen for the sounds of my ancestors and how they felt. And how do I find out how they felt? I look inside and I say, what would I have done? What would I have felt? What would have been the best thing for me to aspire toward? Because as I say, they are us and we are they.
Wow, this felt like a Wakanda moment. Or it should be a Jamaica forever moment. Thank you
That's right.
so much.
Oh,
And
it's my
just
pleasure.
tell us where we can find out more about you and your resources.
Okay, so back on my Forrester Price publishing website, www.forresterprice.com. You can order the book on Amazon or at any other bookstore. If you would like to get in touch with me and ask me questions, just go to the website and send me an email through that website.
Yeah.
Because I really am ready to make as many connections, personal connections. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook.
Tell us your Facebook name.
It's just Dawn Forrester Price.
So thank you, Ms. Dawn, for such an enthralling session, and we wish you all the best with your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
All right. Bye-bye. Bless you.
I trust that you enjoyed that interview and it has inspired you to write your own story and to use a book to build those Caribbean connections and educate people about our Caribbean heritage, especially if you're living in the diaspora. We need to write those stories so that the next generation can be familiar with their history, their origin and culture, so they can have deep roots and be grounded in their identity.
Just reminding you that of the making of books, there is no end. Go pen it to win it and dominate entrepreneurship. Ta for now, until next time.